In this video, we are going to look at what can cause the Body Electrical Control Module, or BECM, in a Range Rover P38 to stay awake and result in battery drain. As you may already know, the RF receiver in the load space for P38 is usually to blame for the battery drain, but we're going to clear up why it causes the problem and how it can be resolved. In the UK and Europe, small low-power wireless devices like vehicle key fobs operate on the frequency of 433 MHz. This frequency is, in short, a license-free band for such devices, and as such, many different kinds of devices make use of it. These can include wireless doorbells, gate openers, weather stations, energy monitors, garage door openers, heating oil tank sensors, some wireless house alarms, and wireless thermostats. There can be many other types of wireless devices that can also use 433 MHz. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. I will demonstrate that these devices can and will wake up the BECM when using a standard first or second generation receiver alone. A common misconception, however, is that wireless networking or Wi-Fi can cause the BECM to stay awake. Wireless networking and Wi-Fi operate on much higher frequencies in the 2.4 and 5 GHz regions. A wireless access point or a wireless router broadcasts a signal almost continuously even when not in use. Given Wi-Fi is ubiquitous in pretty much every area where we now live or work, if it actually caused problems for the P38, it would cause problems for any and every owner that didn't have either the third generation Land Rover receiver fitted or one of our fob filters. The RF receiver, be it a first, second or third generation, does not respond to any wireless networking signals. It is not capable of doing so. We will look at this a bit later. During the video so far, you may have noticed the status indicator on the Fob filter lighting up at random. This is because the receiver it is connected to is picking up signals from the wireless thermostat transmitted on the bench and other devices in my local area. This is a key point. Devices such as wireless sensors will transmit data regularly because they are constantly monitoring something, unlike a doorbell or car remote fob that only transmits occasionally when it is pressed. This is what really takes its toll on the P38. The BECM wakes up for at least 2 minutes every time it receives a transmission. Taking a closer look, on the bench we can see we have the BECM from a P38 connected to a power supply. We also have an RF receiver and some indicator lights. This BECM has been modified to give us an output that shows whether it is awake or not, and whether it has received a valid lock or unlock command. We also have a fob filter with the optional status indicator. This lights up whenever the filter is actively processing a signal from the receiver. We then have some P38 keys and some other sources of 433 MHz interference in the form of wireless thermostats, thermometers and other remote fobs. One of the P38 keys that we have is actually synced to this BECM so that we can lock and unlock it to show the response. So far during the video, we have had the fob filter connected and only the P38 key has woken the BECM up. If we now remove the filter, we can see what else will wake it up. I have removed the batteries from the thermometer and the thermostat to give the BECM a better chance of staying asleep. Just to demonstrate, the P38's fob that is synced with this BECM still works. Now that it's gone to sleep again, if we pick any other remote, BMW key, wakes up the BECM. Another 2 minutes to wait. Okay, so it's gone to sleep again. This time we'll use the Toad aftermarket alarm fob. Wakes up the BECM. For one last test, this BFT gate opening remote wakes up the BECM. The next thing we'll look at is the wireless thermostat and thermometer. I've put the batteries back in both of these devices and as you can now see, the BECM is awake. The wireless thermostat, which is the bigger of the two white boxes, transmits its signal every 15 seconds. Because of this, the BECM never gets a chance to go to sleep. We could sit here all day and watch the blue light, but it will never go off, so we'll do 6 minutes. Well, it would actually go off when the battery goes flat. But in true P38 battery drain fashion, I've got a battery charger connected as well. I guess at this point you can either sit here for 5 or 6 minutes watching a static blue light, or if you believe me, you can skip ahead. If you enjoy this sort of thing, I've got some grass that you can watch grow too. It is a real BECM. Earlier I said that Wi-Fi will not cause the BECM to wake up because the receiver isn't able to receive the transmissions on those frequencies. Here we can see this phone is scanning for networks in range and it is connected to my home's wireless router. There are 4 networks the phone can currently see with a strong enough signal to display. The BECM is currently asleep. I have taken the batteries back out of the thermostat and thermometer to cut down on interference. Thankfully it seems at the moment the other sources of interference local to me are also currently being a bit quieter. The phone is still connected to Wi-Fi and playing a video on YouTube. In a couple of minutes time you can see the BECM continues to respond to the key and then goes back to sleep again. Other than that, it does not wake up. You might want to skip ahead or watch the video in mostly silence. This one is slightly more interesting than the static blue light or the grass growing. We now have the fob filter back in place and the BCM will shortly go to sleep. Now we can test these same sources of interference to show that they cannot wake it up. So now that the BCM has gone to sleep yet again, it should stay that way because we have the fob filter connected. So we take the BMW key, the filter lights up, but the BCM does not wake. The same with the cheap aftermarket locking kit. The BFT gate opener. The remote socket thing. I have no idea what this one is. Do we have any more? Thermostat has batteries in it, or thermometer has batteries in it. Toad. P38 fob. Works exactly as it should. You can do double lock. So that's the vehicle now super locking. And unlocked again. Unlocked. And then in 2 minutes the BCM will go back to sleep and it will stay asleep. The fob filter is a plug and play device that can be specified with or without the status LED you've seen in this video. The LED is applied on an extended cable so that it can be positioned somewhere useful for quick diagnostics. The filter will work on P38s worldwide regardless of the frequency used. While the UK and Europe use 433 MHz, a P38 in the States would have a remote fob and receiver that operate on 315 MHz, for example. When the filter itself is asleep, it uses negligible power, and even while processing a signal, it has a minute power draw, with or without the status LED. In this video I have been using a first generation receiver to demonstrate the filter's functionality. It is however compatible with both first and second generation receivers. It would also function with a third generation receiver, but that would be slightly redundant. All original remote key functionality is retained, so super locking, lazy locking and lazy unlocking will all work as before. As the original antenna can be reconnected to the receiver, the range of the remote is also unaffected versus disconnecting it to try and avoid the battery drain problem. Evidence collected through the development of the fob filter has also revealed some interesting information on some of the less common RF and remote fob problems. Under certain circumstances, it is RF interference that is responsible for the remote fobs randomly losing sync with the car. We have seen certain sources of interference even go as far as to corrupt settings in the BCM when subjected to a standard first or second generation receiver alone. With a considerable amount of testing, we are confident that the fob filter mitigates both of these issues. We may go over these in greater detail later for the technical interest. Of course, if the batteries go flat in your key fob or come loose, it will still lose sync with the car with or without a filter. The fob filter is available to buy from p38webshop.co.uk. One last thing to cover is problems at filling stations. A number of owners have experienced problems with their P38 remote fobs not working at filling stations, which can then render the vehicle immobilised if it's been locked. The P38 fob does not use a particularly robust mechanism when transmitting the code to lock or unlock the vehicle. Other transmissions occurring at the same time can therefore corrupt and appear to block the remote from working. This is unfortunately unavoidable and is a limitation of the original design. While I cannot claim to have any hands-on experience with filling stations and the mechanism used for activating the pumps, etc., some research shows that it is highly likely they use wireless systems that use the same 433 MHz frequencies. An ongoing transmission can block the receiver from receiving the remote fob signal properly and thus stop it from working. To reiterate, however, it is not Wi-Fi, nor your mobile phone, your TV remote, your dog, your fish, or the way you look at the car.